What in God's name is going on in here? James Whitmore's voice exploded through the nursery like a gunshot. The heavy door slammed against the wall, and the sound startled the two pale infants dozing on the chest of the dark-skinned woman tied to his bed. He stood frozen in the doorway, briefcase still in his hand, unable to process the scene before him. Maya William, 29 years old, his live-in maid, soft-spoken and meticulous, was bound to the white headboard with strips of linen knotted so tight that her wrists were already raw. Her blue uniform clung damp to her body, dark with sweat and tears. Against her chest, his 1-year-old twins slept curled in opposite directions, their tiny fists clutching the fabric of her shirt as though it were a lifeline. Her lips trembled. "Sir, please, lower your voice. They're finally asleep." "No." James's jaw clenched. "Asleep? You're tied to a bed with my children strapped to you. What the hell happened here?" He dropped his briefcase with a thud, stepping into the room. The babies stirred at the sound, but Maya rocked them gently despite the strain on her arms, whispering words he couldn't quite catch. His mind raced. No scenario fit what he was seeing. Hours earlier, the house had been quiet. Margot Whitmore, 38, elegant, perfumed, always in control, had entered this same nursery holding a glass of Chardonnay. Her heels clicked against the marble like a metronome of disdain. She'd found Maya kneeling on the rug, rocking the babies while tears streaked down her cheeks. "Ma'am," Maya had whispered, standing as Margot approached. "Please. Just an hour. My son's in the hospital again. They called me. He's fading. Please let me go." Margot arched an eyebrow, swirling the wine in her glass. "Your son. That sickly boy again. Why should I be punished because you can't keep a child alive?" "Please," Maya had begged, hands clasped. "He's all I have. I'll run there and back. No one will even notice." "Notice?" Margot's voice sharpened into a blade. "I notice. You can't even keep my children quiet. You dare ask me for favors?" Maya had swallowed hard. "I'm begging you, Mrs. Whitmore. Please." "May." Margot's hand had shot out, the slap cracking across Maya's cheek so hard she staggered. "Ungrateful rat, you forget your place." "Please don't hit me," Maya had said, glancing at the babies who were beginning to cry. "Not in front of them. You're not a mother here. You're a servant." Margot's eyes glinted with fury. "And servants don't choose where they go." Another slap, sharper. Maya had felt her lips split. The taste of copper filled her mouth. She dropped to her knees, one hand over her bleeding lip, the other still trying to soothe the twins as they screamed, "Please." Before we continue, if you find this story interesting, make sure to subscribe. It really encourages us to keep bringing you more. She whispered again, voice breaking. "Please don't do this." "If you can't stay put," Margot hissed, "then I'll make sure you do." She'd yanked a strip of linen from the wardrobe, grabbed Maya by the wrists, and shoved her against the bed. The babies had squealed at the sudden jolt, clinging tighter to Maya's chest. "No, ma'am. Please." Maya had struggled, but Margot, fueled by spite and Chardonnay, was stronger than she looked. She'd forced Maya's arms above her head and tied the linen tight, cutting into her skin. Blood had begun to bead under the knots, staining the yellow cleaning gloves Margot had forced on her earlier. "Ma'am, I can't move. This is dangerous." "Dangerous?" Margot had scoffed. "The only danger here is a maid who forgets she's disposable." "Oh." She'd tugged a baby harness around Maya's chest, cinching it so the twins were pinned against her even tighter. "You'll stay here. You'll feed them, soothe them, bleed for them if you must. Forget your pathetic child. He'll die, and you'll still be here rocking mine." Maya's heart had cracked, but she'd kept humming through tears. "Don't say that," she'd whispered. "Please don't say that." Margot had tilted her head with mocking pity. "When my husband returns, I'll tell him what I found his maid lying here pretending to be a saint while secretly lazy and incompetent. We'll see how long you last." She'd left, slamming the door. Hours had crawled by. Maya's wrists burned under the knots. Her lip ached. The babies had shifted and whimpered against her chest until finally, exhaustion won and they slept. She'd hummed softly, voice breaking, "Sleep now, my angels. Mama's here, always here." But her mind had drifted to her own son. Was he awake? Did he cry for her? Did he ask why she didn't come? The sound of the front door unlocking had jolted her awake. Now, James Whitmore stood in the doorway. his navy suit immaculate, sharp face drained of color. He stared at the sight of his twins strapped to Maya's bleeding chest, her wrists bound cruelly above her head. "I didn't do this," she whispered hoarsely. "Sir, I swear to you." He stepped closer, eyes flicking to the red marks on her arms, the split lip. His voice dropped into a growl. "Then who?" From the hallway came the familiar click of heels. Margot appeared in the doorway, her red lips curling into a smirk. She sipped lazily from a fresh glass of wine as though nothing in the world were wrong. "Oh, darling," she drawled, feigning innocence. "You weren't supposed to be home so soon." James's head snapped toward her. "Margot, what is going on here?" She arched a brow, stepping into the room with calculated grace. "Exactly what it looks like. I caught her slacking off, lying in our bed while the babies cried. Can you believe it? So I made sure she wouldn't run away and neglect them again." "That's a lie," Maya cried, her voice cracking. "Sir, please, you have to believe me." James raised a hand to silence her but kept his gaze locked on his wife. "You teed her? You hit her?" Margot shrugged, twirling the stem of her wine glass between manicured fingers. "Don't be dramatic. She's a maid. She doesn't get to walk out whenever she pleases. Especially not when she begged to run to some hospital for that sick child of hers. Honestly, I'm tired of hearing about it." The words hit Maya like a dagger. Her head dropped, tears streaming. "My son," she whispered. "He's dying and she wouldn't let me see him." James turned sharply back to Maya. "Your son? You never told me you had a child." Maya's chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. "I didn't want to lose this job. I needed it to pay for his medicine. I thought if I worked hard enough, I could manage both. But she choked, unable to continue. Margot snorted. "See? She hides things. She's untrustworthy. This is why I said we shouldn't hire her. Look at her crying. Pitiful. Acting like a victim while she clings to our children as if they were her own. James's fist slammed against the headboard, making Maya gasp. "Enough," he roared, glaring at his wife. "How dare you treat a human being like this in my house? How dare you risk the safety of my children just to humiliate her?" Margot's smirk faltered. "Risk? Don't be ridiculous. The babies are fine." James's eyes burned. "Fine? Strapped to a woman who hasn't eaten, hasn't rested, bleeding under your knots? Do you even hear yourself?" Maya rocked the babies gently, soothing them back into slumber even as her wrists throbbed. James stepped closer to her, his tone softening. "Maya, tell me everything. From the start." She shook her head, ashamed. "Sir, I don't want trouble. I only wanted to serve well." James's throat tightened. He looked into Maya's swollen eyes, then down at the tiny infants who, despite everything, slept peacefully against her. His chest ached. "Margot," he said slowly, his voice shaking with restrained fury. "Is this true?" She rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't act like some saint, James. You were the one who hired her. You left me alone to manage everything while you played businessman abroad. Do you think I'm going to let some maid disrespect me under my own roof? She needed to learn." "No, learn or suffer," James muttered. He turned back to Maya, gently untying the knots that bruised her wrists. She winced but didn't pull away. He carefully lifted the twins from her chest and cradled them in his arms, their tiny faces nestled against his suit. His eyes never left his wife. "These children trusted her more than their own mother," he said quietly, "and now I know why." Margot's mouth fell open, but no words came. James took a deep breath, looking between his wife and the maid who had silently carried the weight of his absence. "This ends tonight," he said coldly. For a moment his gaze softened as he looked at Maya, her tarot-streaked cheeks, her bleeding lip, the red grooves on her wrists. "You will see your boy tonight, Maya," he said, firmly, not as a servant sneaking hours, but as a mother who deserves to be by her child's side. No. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she clutched the twins tighter one last time before letting go. "Thank you," she whispered. James straightened, his eyes locking onto his wife, who now stood trembling in her silk gown. "You wanted to break her," he said evenly. "Instead, you've broken this marriage. From this moment, things will never be the same for you or for this house." The wine glass slipped from Margot's hand and shattered on the marble floor. And for the first time in years, The balance of power inside the Whitmore mansion shifted. Margot's eyes flared with disbelief. The sharp crash of the wine glass still echoed in the nursery, its shards glinting on the marble like tiny daggers of truth. For the first time in 8 years, she stood without the armor of power, and it rattled her. "You can't be serious," she spat, taking a step toward James. "You're really going to let that woman manipulate you? After everything I've done for this family?" James didn't flinch. He cradled one of the twins in his arm while the other leaned gently against his shoulder. The babies stirred, restless but quiet, their innocence deafening in the tension. "I'm not being manipulated," James said calmly. "I'm being awakened." Margot's laugh was sharp, cold. "You're being fooled by a sob story. A maid with a bastard son who's probably not even sick." Maya inhaled sharply from the corner. Her knees trembled beneath her as she pressed herself tighter into the bed frame, trying to make herself smaller than the pain in her chest. "Enough," James growled. "Don't speak about her, child. You know nothing about what it means to fight for someone with nothing." Margot scoffed. "Oh, please. Don't pretend this is about justice. You're just humiliated because you lost control of your own house." James stepped forward. "Yes, I did lose control and I'm taking it back, starting now." He turned to Maya, his voice softening like warm cloth pressed to a wound. "Do you have anything with you? A bag? Your phone?" Maya blinked, stunned by his tone. "No, sir. Mrs. Whitmore." She took it. James looked at Margot. "Where is her phone?" "I don't know," Margot said coldly, arms crossed. "She probably lost it. She loses everything." "Maya," James said gently, "what hospital is your son at?" "Street. Luke's," she replied, her voice almost too soft to hear. "Downtown." James turned on his heel. "Then that's where we're going. Right now." Maya's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't. Like this." He looked down at her torn uniform, the red stains on her collar. Her face was still swollen, and her arms trembled from the pain. She couldn't possibly walk, let alone carry herself with dignity through a hospital lobby. Without a word, James handed one of the twins to Maya, then disappeared into the hallway. Margot followed after him like a shadow possessed. "You're making a mistake. You're not thinking clearly." "I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years," he said without turning back. He reappeared minutes later with one of Margot's long beige trench coats and a silk scarf. Carefully, he wrapped the coat around Maya's shoulders, tying it in the front, then draped the scarf gently over her head. "You don't need to look like what she did to you," he whispered. Tears filled Maya's eyes. "Sir, He shook his head. "James. Call me James." She nodded, lips trembling. Margot's voice snapped like a whip. "I won't let you leave with her. This is my house. She works for me." James turned to her with ice in his eyes. "She doesn't work for you anymore. She works for no one tonight. Tonight, she is a mother. And I suggest you stay out of my way." Margot stepped forward, chest heaving. "And what will you tell the press, James? That the great James Whitmore abandoned his wife for the help?" "I'll tell them the truth," he replied. "That the woman I married became someone I can no longer recognize, and the woman I almost ignored saved my children without asking for anything in return." Maya stood, shakily, the coat wrapped tightly around her. The twins had both been laid gently in their crib, still sleeping, unaware of the war their home had become. James extended his hand to Maya. She stared at it for a moment before placing her palm in his. It was warm, steady. Together, they walked past Margot, who stood motionless, fury building in the silence she couldn't control. Her manicured nails dug crescents into her own skin, but she said nothing. James led Maya out the front door, into the chilled night air of Charleston. The driveway was empty except for the sleek black SUV parked near the fountain. He opened the passenger door, helping Maya inside before climbing in behind the wheel. As the engine started, the quiet buzz of classical music from the radio filled the space. Maya sat stiffly, hands folded in her lap. Her eyes stared ahead, but her heart was elsewhere. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me," James said. "You didn't deserve any of that, and I should have known. I should have asked more questions." "I never expected you to," Maya said. "Most people don't ask about women like me." James glanced at her, regret thick in his throat. "That ends tonight." The road stretched long and dark ahead of them, lined with moss-draped oaks and quiet estates. But for Maya, the world narrowed to one small hospital room. One child's face. One hope. "How old is your son?" James asked softly. "7, she said. "His name is Elijah. He's smart, so smart. He loves birds. He wants to be a wildlife vet someday." James smiled faintly. "Sounds like someone worth fighting for." Maya nodded, her voice barely holding. "He's everything, and I wasn't there." "You're going now," James said, "and you'll be there every day from now on. That's my promise to you." They drove in silence for a while, the city lights appearing in the distance like distant stars. James reached over and turned the music down, his thoughts loud enough. "Maya," he said, "what happens tonight, what we saw can't go back to the way it was." She looked at him. "I know. I won't let her hurt you again. I believe you." They pulled into the circular drive of Street Luke's. The emergency lights lit the pavement, casting red and blue hues on the windshield. Maya's breath caught in her throat as she stared at the hospital entrance. "You ready?" James asked. "No," she said honestly. "But I have to be." He helped her out, his hand steady on her elbow as they walked inside. The nurse at the front desk recognized Maya instantly, her eyes widening. "You're his mother," she said softly. "Yes," Maya replied, her voice shaking. "We didn't think you'd make it." James stepped forward. "She's here now. Can she see him?" The nurse nodded quickly. "Room 408. He's been asking for her." Maya's knees almost buckled. As they approached the room, James stepped back, letting Maya take the lead. Her hands reached for the door, pausing only for a heartbeat. Then she opened it, and inside, a boy with pale cheeks and tired eyes lit up for the first time in days. "Mama," he breathed. "I'm here, baby." Maya choked out, crossing the room in seconds. "Mama's here." James stood silently in the doorway, watching the reunion with something he hadn't felt in years. Reverence, and for the first time, he wondered what it meant to rebuild a life not with power, but with purpose. If this story touched you, hit like to show your support for Maya, and drop a comment with your city or state so we can see where everyone is watching from. The hospital room was dim, bathed in a soft amber glow from the small lamp in the corner. Machines hummed quietly around the narrow bed, where Elijah lay pale and still, eyes rimmed with exhaustion but wide with hope. His tiny fingers twitched when he saw her. "Mama," he whispered again, this time more sure, as if afraid it had been a dream the first time. Maya rushed to his side, her knees hitting the tile as she folded into him, trembling hands cradling his face. "I'm here, baby. Mama's here. I'm sorry I took so long. I'm so sorry." Elijah's lips curved in a weak smile. "Did you get in trouble again?" Maya let out a strangled laugh between tears. "A little." His eyes fluttered. "Did she yell at you?" "She did more than that," Maya said gently. She pulled the scarf from her head and let it fall, revealing the bruises and cuts along her temple and jaw. "But someone finally stood up for us." From the doorway, James remained still, watching the quiet reunion with a complex emotion tightening his chest. It was like watching a sacred moment raw. If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe, it really means a lot. Untouched by wealth or power, he felt out of place, and yet strangely tethered to it, as if bearing witness was a privilege. Elijah's eyes flicked toward him. "Who's that?" Maya turned, then reached for James's hand, surprising even herself. "This is Mr. Whitmore. He brought me here." The boy studied him carefully. "You're the boss." James knelt slowly beside the bed, lowering himself to Elijah's level. "That's right. But tonight, I'm just someone who needed to do the right thing." There was a beat of silence before Elijah nodded solemnly. "Thank you for not being mean to my mom." James swallowed. "She's a better person than most people I know." Maya reached up and brushed Elijah's hair gently. "I can't stay long. Visiting hours are almost over." "No," James said quietly. "You're not leaving tonight." Maya blinked. "But I didn't bring anything. I have no clothes. No bag. I'll send someone with what you need," he said. "Stay as long as you want. Your place is here." She looked down, overwhelmed. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't," he said. "Just take care of your son." A nurse knocked gently on the door. "Excuse me, Mr. Whitmore?" James stood. "Yes?" "There's a woman in the lobby. Says she's your wife. She's demanding to see you." Maya tensed. James's jaw clenched. "I'll handle it," he said. He turned to Maya. "You stay here. No matter what happens, I want you with your son tonight. You hear me?" She nodded. "Yes, James." He gave her a small, tired smile before following the nurse out. The elevator doors opened onto the main floor of the hospital, and Margot was pacing like a storm in designer heels. She was still in her silk robe, now half wrinkled and out of place under the harsh fluorescent lights. Her makeup had begun to crack, her lipstick fading at the corners of her tense mouth. "There you are," she hissed the moment she saw him. "You humiliated me." James remained calm. "You humiliated yourself." "I'm your wife," she snapped. "You don't abandon me for a maid." I didn't abandon you," he said coldly. "I just stopped protecting a lie." Margot crossed her arms. "So now what? You think you're going to play hero? Drag that woman around and pretend you're some moral man of the people?" James didn't flinch. "No, I'm going to take responsibility for letting evil grow under my roof." Her nostrils flared. "You're overreacting." "Am I?" He stepped closer. "You assaulted her, starved her, tied her to a bed. You endangered our children out of pure jealousy. And then you lied to me. She manipulated you. She asked for 1 hour to see her dying son," James growled. "And you beat her for it." Margot's mask cracked, for just a second. Her eyes flickered with something not regret, but fear. The foundation of control she'd built for years had begun to crumble. "I want her fired," she said. "Immediately, or I'm calling my attorney." James shook his head. "She's not going anywhere. You are." Margot's mouth dropped open. "We'll talk about legal separation first thing in the morning," he said. "Until then, I want you out of the house. Tonight." "You're kicking me out?" she spat. "I'm protecting my children," he replied, "from someone who's become dangerous. You're not the woman I married, Margot. You're something cruel and calculated, and I won't let you destroy anything else." Tears welled in her eyes, but James didn't believe them. "Not anymore." "You'll regret this," she said quietly. "No," he replied. "What I regret is not seeing through you sooner." Margot turned on her heel and stormed out into the night. Back upstairs, Maya sat at Elijah's bedside, holding his hand as the IV dripped slowly beside him. He'd fallen asleep, his chest rising and falling in slow rhythm. The door opened, and James stepped inside, quieter now. "She's gone," he said. Maya nodded. "I figured." He sat in the corner chair, resting his head back, eyes closed. "I'm not sure what happens next," he murmured. "Neither am I," she whispered. "But for now, this is enough." They sat in silence, a mother and a man who had finally chosen to do the right thing, even when it was too late to fix everything, but not too late to begin again. The hum of the hospital machines created a soft rhythm in the room, like the quiet beating of a wounded heart. Elijah slept peacefully, his small hand still wrapped around Maya's finger, as if afraid to let go even in dreams. Maya leaned back in the chair beside his bed, her head resting gently against the edge, exhausted but unwilling to sleep. James watched from the corner of the room. He hadn't moved in over an hour, just sat there in silence, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. Something about this space, the pale blue walls, the quiet beeping, the smell of antiseptic had changed him. The sharp, unshakable businessman of yesterday now looked like a man who had seen the fault lines of his own soul. "I should call a lawyer," he said quietly. Maya looked up, her eyes soft but cautious. "For what?" "To begin the separation process. To put Margot on legal notice. To protect you," he said. "To protect the twins." Maya hesitated, her voice barely audible. "I don't want to cause trouble." James gave a bitter smile. "You didn't. Trouble was already there. You just lit a candle in the dark and showed me where it was hiding." Maya dropped her gaze, unsure of how to respond. She'd never been praised for speaking truth, certainly not by someone like him. He stood slowly and walked to the window, gazing down at the city lights. "You know, I used to think power was control, that if you kept everything in order on paper, in business, at home, you'd win. But what I didn't realize was that power without kindness isn't strength. It's just fear wearing a tie. Maya offered a quiet smile. Sometimes fear looks like perfection. James turned, facing her. You must think I'm pathetic. I think you're trying, she said. And that's more than most. A gentle knock interrupted the moment. A young nurse stepped in with a warm smile and a tray of food. Mrs. William, we brought you something. Hospital food's not much, but it's hot. Maya blinked. I didn't order anything. The nurse smiled wider. We know. Dr. Garcia asked us to prepare something for the mother. He said it's been a long time coming. Huh. Maya reached for the tray, her hands still trembling slightly. As the nurse left, she sat slowly and looked at the food. Nothing fancy, but real. Nourishing. It was the first full meal she'd seen in over 24 hours. You should eat, James said. She looked at him. Are you going to stay? If that's all right, he replied. Maya nodded, then took a small bite. Her body reacted immediately, grateful and starved. She closed her eyes, savoring the warmth in her belly. James sat down beside her, silent but present. After a while, Elijah stirred. He opened his eyes groggily and blinked at them. Hey there, Maya said, brushing his curls gently. You hungry too? Elijah shook his head. Did the man stay? James leaned forward. Still here, buddy. Elijah studied him for a moment. Do you have kids? James nodded. Yes, 2 babies. Just like you said, loud and always hungry. Elijah smiled faintly. Are you nice to them? James posed. I'm learning how to be. Elijah looked at Maya. He's okay, Mama. I think he's a good guy now. Maya chuckled, her eyes wet. I think so too. The moment was interrupted by the sound of James's phone buzzing on the chair. He checked the screen. It was a text from his assistant. Legal team contacted. Meeting scheduled 9 a.m. Margot's attorney reached out. More details coming. He sighed and placed the phone face down. The real storm was about to begin. Lawyers. Press. Public opinion. All of it. You don't have to get involved in this, Maya said gently. I'll be fine. You've already done more than anyone. James shook his head. I'm not doing this for show, Maya. This isn't about playing hero. This is about accountability for myself. For my children. She nodded slowly. But a part of her still struggled to believe this was real. That someone like him would stand beside someone like her not as a savior, but as an equal. As the night deepened, Elijah drifted back to sleep. Maya tucked him in gently, brushing her lips across his forehead. Then she turned to James, her voice low. You know I can't go back to your house. I know, he said, and you won't have to. She looked at him, surprised. I've already arranged for you and Elijah to stay at one of my properties, he continued. It's small, just outside of the city. Safe, quiet. A place you both can heal. Maya's eyes widened. I can't accept that. You can, he said, because it's not a gift. It's the least I can do to make things right, and because I want you to have choices again. Tears formed in her eyes, but she blinked them back. You're not the man I thought you were. James smiled sadly. Neither was I. The room fell into a gentle silence, just the soft breathing of a sleeping boy, the rhythm of 2 broken lives beginning to mend. Outside the window, the first light of dawn crept over the city. A new day had come. The early morning sun filtered through the blinds, casting thin golden stripes across Elijah's hospital bed. Maya sat at his side, one hand gently stroking his hair, while the other held a cup of lukewarm tea. She hadn't slept, but she didn't feel tired, not in the usual way. Something inside her had shifted, fragile still, but standing. James returned with 2 steaming coffees and a paper bag. You didn't eat much last night, he said softly, offering her the bag. Figured you might be more awake with something warm. Maya hesitated. You didn't have to. I wanted to, he interrupted gently. She took the bag and opened it to find a simple breakfast sandwich and a small fruit cup. Nothing extravagant. But somehow, it meant more than the grandest feast ever could. It meant someone thought of her. Thank you, she whispered. James took a seat across from her, sipping his coffee, eyes drifting to Elijah. He looks better this morning. Maya nodded. His color's coming back, His fever broke around 3 a.m. The nurses said, maybe he turned a corner. They smiled. He's strong. He's had to be, she said, her voice quiet. We both have. They sat in silence for a while. The kind of silence that didn't need filling. It wrapped around them gently, like a blanket warming two people who had forgotten what comfort felt like. Then came a knock at the door. A young woman stepped in, dressed in a charcoal gray pantsuit, clipboard in hand, glasses perched on her nose. She looked like the kind of person who handled problems for powerful men. Mr. Whitmore? James stood. Yes? I'm Andrea Paulson, from Whitmore Legal. You asked for a private consultation this morning. We've secured a quiet conference room down the hall. I can update you now if you're ready. James nodded, then looked at Maya. Do you mind? She shook her head. Go. I'll be right here. As he followed Andrea out, Maya turned back to Elijah. The boy stirred, blinking up at her with half-lidded eyes. Is the nice man gone? Just for a bit, Maya said, smiling. He's got some big work stuff to do. Elijah nodded, eyes closing again. I like him. Maya leaned down and kissed his forehead. I think I do too. Meanwhile, down the hall in the small conference room, Andrea laid out a folder in front of James. First, the good news, she began. We've frozen joint accounts and secured the children's custody under temporary emergency protection. Given the documented abuse, our odds of full custody are high, especially with hospital reports and Maya's testimony. James exhaled, a weight he didn't know he carried beginning to lift. And the bad news, he asked? Margot's lawyers are preparing for war, Andrea said flatly. She's already leaked a partial story to one of the tabloids. A version where you're having an affair with your maid and have gone insane. They're trying to play the optics. James chuckled dryly. Of course they are. I've hired a crisis management team, Andrea added, but we need to be proactive. If you want to protect Maya, you'll need to go public with the truth on your terms. James stiffened. I don't want her dragged through the mud. She already is, Andrea said gently. But if you don't speak first, they'll define the narrative. You can't protect her by staying silent. He nodded slowly. Then we speak. Back in the hospital room, a nurse entered quietly and gave Maya a gentle nod. Elijah's results came in, she said. We'll discuss treatment options later this afternoon, but it's looking better. Maya let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Thank you. He's lucky to have you, the nurse added. Most kids don't fight that hard unless they know someone's fighting for them. Maya blinked back tears. I've been trying. When James returned, Maya could tell something in his posture had changed. More focused, sharper. I need to tell you something, he said, taking the seat beside her again. Margot's making this messy. She's telling the press we're having an affair. Maya's stomach twisted. What? James held up a hand. It's not true, and I've told my team to shut it down. But it means things may get ugly. I won't lie to you. And Maya stared at the blanket on Elijah's bed, gripping its edge. They're going to drag me through the dirt. They'll try, he said, but I won't let them succeed, and I won't let them scare you. She looked at him, eyes searching. Why are you doing this, James? Really? He was quiet for a long moment before he answered. Because I should have seen the truth sooner. Because people like me don't usually get second chances to do the right thing. And because I've seen how you hold my children like they're your own. I've seen how you love this world, even when it's cruel to you. That matters. Maya blinked, tears threatening again. You don't owe me anything, she said. I know, he replied, but I owe myself better than I've been, and I want to start by protecting you. They sat together, the weight of the world just outside the hospital walls, but for this moment inside this room it couldn't touch them. Later that afternoon, Elijah opened his eyes wider than before, a bit of color returning to his cheeks. He grinned weakly. Mom, when we go home, can we get a dog? Maya laughed. Let's focus on getting you home first. James smiled. I think that sounds like a good plan. And for the first time in a long while, the word home didn't feel like something Maya had to fear. It felt like something she might build again from the ruins, with her son, and maybe even with someone who finally saw her. 3 days passed in a blur of hospital corridors, medication schedules, and soft conversations in the quiet hours of dawn. Elijah responded well to treatment, his fever vanishing, his appetite returning. and the hollow shadows under his eyes slowly fading. But outside the safety of room 408, the world spun faster and louder. Maya sat at the window in a fresh change of clothes, simple jeans and a navy blouse James's assistant had brought her. The bruises on her face had begun to yellow. The pain in her wrists dulled to a throb. She looked almost ordinary now, but nothing inside her felt ordinary anymore. James entered the room with a tablet in hand. His jaw was tight. "They ran the story," he said. Maya's shoulders stiffened. "What did they say?" James handed her the tablet. On the screen, a glossy tabloid headline, "Billionaire leaves socialite wife for secret nanny romance," with a photo of Maya entering the hospital under the coat and scarf he'd wrapped her in. Her face wasn't fully visible, but her skin tone, her silhouette, the story crafted around her, it was enough. Maya swallowed hard. "They made me into a scandal. They made you into a lie," James said. "But I can fix it." By doing what? Letting them drag my name through court? Turning my life into entertainment? "I'm going to speak," he said. "We're holding a press conference tomorrow morning. I'll give them the truth." Maya stared at him. "And what is the truth, James? That a maid was beaten and imprisoned in your home? That she slept on floors to care for your children while your wife wore diamonds? That she begged to see her dying son and was punished for it?" James sat down, voice steady. "The truth is that I was blind, that I let power silence the people I should have protected, and that I will not let that happen again." She turned away, the storm inside her rising. "You're risking everything. Your company, your reputation. For me." "I'm not risking it for you," he said. "I'm risking it for what's right." A long pause followed. Maya's fingers trembled in her lap. "I never asked you to save me." "I know," James said. "But you saved my children. That wasn't your job either." "Oh." Maya looked over at Elijah, who was now sitting up in bed, humming softly to himself as he drew birds on the back of a breakfast menu with a crayon. "If we do this," she said quietly, "we do it all the way. The truth. My name. No hiding." James nodded. "Agreed." That night, Maya slept beside Elijah in a reclining chair, his hand clutched in hers. James remained in the corner chair, his laptop open but untouched. Instead, he watched them, this mother and son,